Most gardeners wait too long to start seeds indoors. They see days to maturity on the packet and think, cool, I'll start counting from seed. 60 days to maturity? I'll plant 60 days before my last frost. But that's not what it means. Days to maturity usually means days from transplant, not from seed. And for most crops, there's 4 to 12 weeks of indoor growth before you ever transplant. So when you wait until March to start certain crops, you're not early, you're late. Your plants go outside small and weak. They spend the first month of good spring weather just trying to recover. And by the time they're big enough to produce, the season is half over. The gardeners who harvest early don't plant early in the ground. They start early indoors. Today, I'm breaking down the 8 crops you must start indoors before spring, plus the timing window for each, and the one mistake that causes most people to miss these harvests entirely. And we're starting with the crop that punishes late starters the hardest. Crop number 1. Onions. If you want real onions, not scallions, onions must be started indoors. Onions need 10 to 12 weeks indoors before transplanting. Here's why. Onions don't bulb when they feel mature. They bulb based on day length, so if you plant onions too late, they don't have time to build strong tops before the day length triggers bulbing. Weak tops equals small bulbs, every time. What to do? Start onion seeds in shallow trays 2 to 3 inches deep. Sow fairly close together, about ½ inch spacing is fine. Once they're a few inches tall and have 2 true leaves, pot them up or separate into deeper trays with about 2-inch spacing. Lights, 14 to 16 hours per day. Goal at transplant time, 6 to 8 inches tall with thicker stems. If you start onions on time, you harvest full-size bulbs midsummer. If you wait and direct seed late, you'll get green onion energy instead of storage onions. Crop number 2. Leeks. Leeks are onions' taller, fancier cousin, and they need the same head start. Leeks also need 10 to 12 weeks indoors. The good news, leeks are more forgiving than onions because you're not bulbing. You're building a thick stem. Start leeks the same way as onions. Shallow trays, then more space as they grow. And here's the leek trick that makes them worth growing. When you transplant leeks, plant them deep. Dig a trench about 6 inches deep. Set the leek at the bottom. As it grows, gradually fill the trench in. This blanches the stem and gives you that long, white, edible part. Leeks started indoors early give you a harvest in late summer and fall, and they can stay in the ground into cold weather like champs. Now we move into the crops that people start at the wrong time in both directions. Too late or way too early. Crop number 3, tomatoes. Tomatoes need 6 to 8 weeks indoors, not 12, not 16. And this is where people mess up. They either start too late or they start way too early and end up with leggy, root-bound vines trapped indoors. Tomatoes grow fast. 6 to 8 weeks is enough. What to do? Start in small cells or 2-inch pots. When true leaves appear, pot up to 4-inch pots. Lights, keep them 2 to 4 inches above seedlings. Run lights 14 to 16 hours per day. Water when the top inch is dry. Feed quarter strength once per week after true leaves. Here's the tomato advantage that saves you if they stretch. Tomatoes can be buried deep when transplanting. The buried stem grows roots, so if you have a slightly leggy tomato, you can fix it later. But if you start too late, you can't magically make time appear. Tomatoes started indoors produce weeks earlier than direct seeded, and in many climates that's the difference between tomatoes all summer and tomatoes for 2 weeks at the end. Crop number 4, peppers. Peppers are slower than tomatoes in every way. Slower to germinate, slower to grow, slower to recover. Peppers need 8 to 10 weeks indoors, and the big factor is heat. Pepper seeds germinate best with soil temps around 75 to 85 degrees. If your house runs cool, germination will be spotty or painfully slow. Use a heat mat until they sprout, then remove it. Pepper basics. Start in small cells, 2 to 3 inches deep. Pot up to 4-inch pots after true leaves. Lights close because peppers stretch easily. Let the top inch dry between waterings. Harden off 7 to 10 days. Peppers started indoors early don't just produce earlier, they produce more. Because peppers reward you for having a strong plant early. More branches early equals more flowers later equals more fruit. Crop number 5. Eggplant. Eggplant is basically pepper's hotter, more dramatic sibling. Eggplant needs 8 to 10 weeks indoors too, and it wants even more warmth. Eggplant germinates best around 80 to 90 degrees. If you start eggplant in a cool room, it will just sit there doing nothing for weeks. How to win with eggplant. Start in small pots. Use a heat mat for germination. Keep under strong lights. Do not transplant outside until nights are consistently above 55 degrees. Because eggplant stalling early can cost you the whole season. Eggplant started properly produces all summer. Eggplant started late often doesn't ripen much before fall. Now let's shift to a totally different category. Crops you start indoors not because they need warmth, but because they need to finish before heat ruins them. Crop number 6. Brassicas, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage. Brassicas need 4 to 6 weeks indoors. These are cool season crops, and success is all about timing. You're not trying to avoid frost, you're trying to beat heat. Spring broccoli and cauliflower fail for most people because they get planted too late, and then they try to form heads when the weather is warming up. That's when you get tiny button heads, early bolting, bitter flavor, and pest pressure that explodes overnight. What to do? Start in small cells or 2-inch pots. No heat mat needed. 60 to 70 degrees is fine. Keep lights close. Transplant outdoors 2 to 4 weeks before last frost. They tolerate light frost. They actually like it. This is how you harvest brassicas when they taste sweet and clean, not stressed and bitter. Crop number 7. Celery. Celery is one of the slowest crops you can grow from seed. It needs 10 to 12 weeks indoors, and it grows like it's doing paperwork first. Celery seeds are tiny and germinate slowly, and celery has one demand: consistent moisture. If celery dries out during germination, it can delay or fail. How to start celery? Start in shallow trays. Barely cover seeds, they need light to germinate. Keep consistently moist. Once they have 2 true leaves, move to cells or pots. Keep lights close, water more often than you think. Celery started indoors produces thick stalks by midsummer. Celery direct seeded often never gets there before cold weather returns. Crop number 8. Lettuce as transplants. Lettuce doesn't have to be started indoors, but here's why you might do it anyway. Starting lettuce indoors gives you a harvest 3 to 4 weeks earlier, and it gives you control. If you want consistent salads instead of lettuce chaos, you start transplants. Lettuce needs only 3 to 4 weeks indoors. What to do? Start in shallow trays or small cells. Barely cover seeds. Keep temps around 60 to 70 degrees. Lights close because lettuce stretches fast. Transplant outside 2 to 4 weeks before last frost. And here's the power move: succession planting. Start a new tray of lettuce every 2 weeks. That gives you steady harvest instead of one big flush that bolts. Why indoor starts change everything. Indoor starting isn't just about getting a head start. It's about giving plants stable conditions: steady moisture, controlled temperature, strong light, no wind, no cold rain, no crusted soil. Direct-seeded plants spend their entire early life fighting the weather. Transplants go outside ready to grow. And in gardening, the first 30 days of growth determines the next 90. What to do this week? Simple action plan. If you want a clear plan, here it is. Start immediately, don't delay. Onions, leeks, celery if you want it this year. Brassicas if you're aiming for spring harvest. Start soon, on schedule. Tomatoes 6 to 8 weeks before transplant. Peppers 8 to 10 weeks before transplant. Eggplant 8 to 10 weeks before transplant. Start for early harvest or steady salads. Lettuce transplants 3 to 4 weeks before going outside, and repeat every 2 weeks. You don't need perfection. Seedlings don't need perfect. They need consistency. So don't wait for spring vibes. Start the crops that need a head start before spring shows up and dares you to catch up.